Obviously, this is not Brad and Travis, but we'll find out soon. Let's take a look at what we've got in our hand here. I see a Plains. Such a pretty full art Plains. Is that Gideon hiding in the corner there? Oh. And we've got a mulligan by our Star Realms player, whoever this mystery man is. So yeah, I've never casted before. Hope you guys are enjoying listening to me ramble. It's been a lot of fun. And Drew's back! Yay!
Yeah,
Let
back.
the banter resume. Looks like our overlay is going to get fixed up post-haste here. Who do we got here? Oh, that's Brian Meekum, not Brad Meekum. Yeah, Brian's a local player from the Lehigh Game Grid. And now I know what he's on. I believe he's playing some Bant variant. So that should be super sweet to see. Told me he was sleeving up Tameo. Looked at him like he was crazy, but maybe it'll play out.
Yeah, I don't know if there's been a lot of Tameos. And it looks like
I haven't seen Tameo since Collected Company rotated. So we've got Bant Midrange. That's a good enough name. And then we're sticking with red white vehicles from Mr. Andrew Scott over here.
Yep.
Got a Toolcraft exemplar on the board already.
Dustwatch Recruiter. I didn't know that guy was still seeing play.
Right? Yeah, this Bant list is pretty much company with Tameos over the top of the companies and
Gotcha.
Gideons, from what Brian was telling me about it. And I think this is literally his third ever game. But he did 2-0 the last series he played, so.
So he's currently up 1-0 in the tournament.
Yep, and they're both at no games won. We've got a Toolcraft exemplar getting first damage in.
Looks like a Selfless Spirit.
No, that's Smuggler's Copter over here.
Oh, no, I know that is. I'm
Oh,
talking
I
about
see.
on his
Oh,
side
in
of
his
the board,
hand, sorry.
that he just cast.
Got it. Sweet. I'm watching the wrong stream over here. I'm watching the delayed feed. Oh, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, so some early plays. We got a
Nice aggressive game going on.
Toolcraft Exemplar, Smuggler's Copter, and a Thraben Inspector.
The Thraben Inspector's nuts. Like, just the sheer value, especially with Improvise coming out in Aether Revolt. That guy is going to be everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, Thraben Inspector's been kind of a player in Standard since it was printed in Shadows over Innistrad, right? It was originally in the, white weenie decks with the Always Watching and just lots of cheap, efficient threats, and even a 1-power creature for 1 mana when it gives you
a Smuggler's Copter.
Yeah, but it gives you, a little bit of card advantage, and it's proven to continue to have, to just be a valuable creature in the company decks, and then in these red-white vehicle decks. So it's just been a creature that's been a part of Standard for a very, very long time. Looks like Andrew's had a very good start. He had a 1-drop into a 2-drop, and then into a 2-drop, and then another into a 1-drop
on 3.
Yep. So he's got 4 creatures in play.
And he just discarded a Selfless Spirit, so hand is full of gas.
Yeah, that's never a good feeling when they discard a live spell,
Right?
from the aggressive deck.
Yeah, could be a bluff. Unlikely though.
No, I don't think I've ever looted a spell to try and bluff.
All right. Well, that's the classic example. There was at a Legacy GP, and a guy's got a handful of lands, and he draws for the turn going second, discards Force of Will from his live draw with 7 lands in hand, and passes.
Mm-hmm.
And his opponent doesn't play anything for the rest of the game until he's able to actually draw into some action, because he's like, oh, if you discarded Force of Will, you're full of all sorts of good cards.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, I've certainly heard. One of the classic stories that I heard was way back in I think it was late '90s or early 2000s. It was a mono blue mirror match, and so in the control mirror matches, it was always important to make your land drops, right? Like if you miss a land drop, you could fall far behind. So a guy ended up keeping a 7-card hand with 7 islands in it. And on his 4th or 5th turn, he deliberately missed his land drop and discarded a card. And then his opponent assumed he had a handful, 7 counter spells, when in reality he just had 7 islands in his hand.
Nice. Nice.
And he ended up winning the game. So,
yeah. Next level.
So it looks like Brad passed, I believe, and flipped his Duskwatch Recruiter into a Crawling Horde Tower. Now, are there any 4-mana instants in this deck? Because we no longer have Collected Company.
I've got no idea.
You know what he could do, actually? He could play Archangel Avacyn, because it's reduced
by one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that could be a blowout.
If he does have Archangel Avacyn, that may be what he's setting up for.
Smart.
Which would be, it would be a decent setup. We'll see what Andrew decides to do here. Plays a land. He may have had the 4th land in his hand and may have just kept it because he wanted to play a 4-drop. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So now the question is, do you attack into a potential Avacyn?
Just get your whole team crushed, right? Like, what lives out of that? Probably just the Selfless Spirit? I guess you could stack the Selfless Spirit, right?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, so worst case scenario is Andrew just loses the Selfless Spirit.
Yeah.
So he's going to go ahead and attack with everything.
Yeah.
He's saying either you have Avacyn or you don't. And either way, I think he would end up sacrificing Stasis Snare. Not quite as bad as an Avacyn, I think.
After attacks. No, yeah, that'll be fine.
So he's just going to trade into the 5/3 with his 3/3.
Yeah. Does Fleetwood Cruiser have Trample?
I think
it's Trample Haste, yeah, so he's going to take a few extra points of damage anyway.
So the question is, does Brad want to sacrifice his Selfless Spirit to save his Howler? He does not. Andrew also could have sacrificed his Selfless Spirit to save his Cruiser, but decided not to as well. They value having the Selfless Spirits in play.
Yeah. I wonder if Andrew's got Brian pegged on control. Just like waiting for the Fumigate, keeping that Selfless Spirit alive and out of action.
Possibly, yeah.
Oh, an Evolving Wilds. That's going to slow him down.
I don't know if I would put Brad on control with the way the creatures he's played so far. Right, he's played a Recruiter into a Selfless Spirit.
That's fair. Yeah.
So Gideon
getting a few bodies on the board, so that Stasis Snare on the flyer is looking a lot better now. Keep Gideon alive for a couple turns. Got these two Selfless Spirits just staring each other down.
Yep.
It's like a Wild Wild West gun show, man.
Yeah, and right now, Brad can adequately defend the Gideon.
Yeah, that Toolcraft is a problem with the clue still sitting there, but... What do we got here? Motorist, refill the hand. Well, scry into more action.
Yeah, so Andrew can... he can attack with the Selfless Spirit, but Brad also can just block the Selfless Spirit.
Yeah.
He can attack with the Exemplar as well to force the chump.
Yeah.
Or even Brad could just allow the Gideon to fall to 1.
Yeah, that doesn't slow him down at all. Just keeps making 2/2s, right?
Yeah, if he, say, has, like, a creature or 2 that he can cast next turn.
Yeah. Resolved the Evolving Wilds, so now he's finally got Avacyn mana.
Do you think he maybe had it and didn't know that the Howler would have reduced the cost?
I don't know.
Do you think he's a cagey enough player that he would have been able to see that?
Usually Brian's pretty ahead of the curve. Like, he's methodical in his lines of play. So I would imagine that if he had that option, he would have taken it earlier. But hey, maybe it's just with Selfless Spirit on board, he felt like it was more important to get rid of the Smuggler's Copter. Although it's 6 life. We'll see how stable he actually is. That's interesting. No swing with the Toolcraft Exemplar.
I guess the other thing is he might have ended up trading the Selfless Spirit for the Exemplar, but I think I would have been fine with that trade if I was Andrew.
Yeah.
Right, because he could sacrifice the Selfless Spirit after blocking.
Whoa, going on the offensive with Gideon?
So he's attacking. I'm assuming Andrew will just take this. He doesn't really have any good blocks, obviously.
Trade some life points for control of the board.
Looks like Brad passed, so...
That's got to be Avison,
Yeah.
right? Unless he's, again, that next level bluff. So how's Red White Vehicles been doing on the competitive scene lately?
I think it's fallen off a lot in favor. I think part of the problem is it just doesn't have the ability to close out games the same way other decks do.
Yeah.
Because you end up in situations like this, right, where you have a couple like efficient creatures, but you don't have a way to attack past
A
a board state. Yeah, or any sort of board state, you just don't have the ability. Unlike the green-red energy decks, where even if you only have one creature in play, that one creature could potentially be lethal.
With trample.
Yeah,
and hexproof.
Yeah,
and a negate backup.
Yeah, so I definitely think my guess is if you wanted to play an aggressive deck, there's probably better options available, and there is Avison. I think Andrew passed
the turn into the Avison.
Reading him for the Avison.
This time it was not a bluff. Yeah, do you think that with the new improvised mechanic, Red White Vehicles splashes into blue, goes Jeskai? Gain access to that 1-mana counterspell essentially with the clues and vehicles they build up, or?
It's possible. I don't know how much just having a counterspell helps a deck like that. You could fundamentally change the way the deck works, right, and make it more of a classic mid-range deck, but I don't know what options are available for the decks to do that. Brad is attacking in with both the Gideon and the Avison, potentially, presenting quite a bit of damage here. So we have a Stasis Snare on Gideon.
Is that a normal main deck for vehicles? I thought that they were on Blessed Alliance right now. It's a good card. I don't disagree with the play. I was just wondering what we've been seeing out of the top 8 lately.
No, Stasis Snare is pretty good, I think, just in general. It is a little... Yeah, it's probably not as good versus the Hex, the green-red energy decks as Blessed Alliance. Since spending 3 mana to get it countered by any sort of Hex
2 energy.
ability, feels pretty miserable.
Bristling Hydra, yeah. So we got open mana on Brian's side of the field again.
So even though Andrew did answer the Gideon, he still has to deal with Avison.
Yeah. Apollo will give him a lot of options, though, if he can get a vehicle down. Already puts the Toolcrafter and the Veteran Motorist up, right? They're both dwarves. So that's going to increase the amount of damage he could push through. But I don't think it puts him on lethal yet.
No, still not attacking.
Yeah, you can't risk Avison dying and completely changing the board state, right?
Yeah.
Or not Avison dying, sorry. Selfless dying or any of the other.
So Brad didn't attack, or Brad didn't have anything to do with his 6 mana. He just passed the turn. And then Andrew goes ahead and just takes another Avison hit.
And we're back over to Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew's going to need some way to, I think, kind of punch through. He could try and go for an alpha attack because he has Selfless Spirit. The problem is if Brad has any answer to that. Well, I don't even think he has lethal with Brad even only having 3 blockers. So, yeah.
I think he needs one more. I think he's waiting for a Sky Sovereign or a Fleetwheel Cruiser to be able to punch through maximum damage. Right? Because he's got one more body, and I think he's got lethal. And if it's a hasty body, that's just that much better.
Yeah, it's Brad not casting anything kind of send some signals. The other interesting thing is, well, because I think Brad could have maybe forced the issue last turn to try and go for lethal by sacrificing his Selfless Spirit to flip the Avacyn, and then which would have forced Andrew to sacrifice his Selfless Spirit, but then he would have had 9 points of damage because the Avacyn would have done 3 to Andrew and then 6 points of power.
And no flyer.
But that does, it leaves you a little more exposed if you're Brad, if you think Andrew has another stasis snare.
Yeah. Hard to go all in and put all your eggs in one basket like that.
Alright, so Andrew is attacking with 3 of his creatures.
Looks like we've got 3 blocks to meet him. Probably a sacked Selfless Spirit, do we think, or?
Alright, so he's putting the Knight in front of the Exemplar, he's putting Selfless Spirit, and then the Avacyn.
Oh, okay. So if Avacyn's not going to die, I guess you sack Selfless Spirit regardless, right? Keep the Knight alive?
Yeah, I mean, I would think you would just sacrifice Selfless Spirit.
And then Avacyn gets to crack in for the win, potentially.
Yeah, so this, if that Avacyn flips and Andrew doesn't have a stasis snare for the Avacyn, then he's dead because he has to sacrifice his Selfless Spirit, which removes his only blocker for the Avacyn. So we'll have to see if Andrew is aware of that and has some sort of answer. Something like a Smuggler's Copter would work to chump for a turn because the Selfless Spirit will save the Smuggler's Copter. But yeah. I don't know if he has that. All right, so we're going to his upkeep.
We're going to upkeep, Avacyn flips, and we're going to game 2.
Yep.
Which is usually the result when we see Avacyn come onto the battlefield. There we go. That's the real problem with red-white vehicles. There's not enough mythics in the deck.
That's exactly how we determine how powerful your deck is how many mythics there are.
Did you play during Bant Mythics?
Back when, during
Alara block?
Jace the Mind Sculptor? No, I did not play at all during the reign of Jund.
WoW TCG, right?
Yeah, I was playing WoW TCG at that time.
That was a solid game. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I liked the WoW TCG a lot. It was basically Magic. They just changed the resource system, so any card could be a land instead of having a specific type that was a land. Was really the only difference.
Yeah. Which made for, there was a lot of critical thought that had to go into hitting your land drop.
Yeah, because you basically didn't want to ever miss a... Well, I mean, certain decks, right? Like, there were aggressive decks in WoW, so, you could get up to 3 or 4 resources and then stop. But then there were decks that had 9 and 10 mana spells, and those decks you couldn't stop. There was a little bit of ramp, but not a lot. There wasn't like a ton of ramp in the decks, so generally you were just naturally playing your lands until you got up to 9 or 10 lands, and then you were playing your really big haymakers at that point.
Yeah. Kind of like Hearthstone with instants.
Yeah.
More targeted attacking, right?
Yeah, so in WoW you could attack the opponent's creatures directly like you can in Hearthstone.
Yeah.
WoW, yeah, so...
But you had to exhaust to defend with your taunters, right?
Yes.
So they couldn't actually be used for multiple defenses.
Yep, they were called protectors, and the person that controlled the protector determined, do I want to protect against this attack or whatever. Yeah. So when you had a protector out, it was like Magic in the sense that you got to control how you blocked, but only protectors could do that. Otherwise, as the defensive player, the attacking player generally had the advantage.
Yeah.
Which I think when the game first started created some issues with the person that went first often had a really big advantage. I know that was something they talked about where they started printing more powerful protectors, cards that allowed you to catch up if you were going second, specifically because of the ability to dictate tempo so well. It's still true in Magic that I think the person that goes first has a very slight advantage. It's like 1% or something like that over like a giant sample size or whatever. But in Magic, because of the land system and because your resources tend to be a little more limited than like in games of Hearthstone and WoW. And when I say resources, I mean, I'm talking about like your total actual cards available to you that, because you don't have access to as many resources, that it's a little bit easier for someone on the draw to catch back up.
Yeah.
But tempo still is a very big factor in Magic.
Undoubtedly. Yeah, what do you think of, have you been watching the spoilers for Aether Revolt?
Yeah, I've looked at a couple of
Got
them.
the expertise cycle. Did you see Baral's expertise?
Which one was that? I
So
probably
it's the
have.
blue cycle, or the blue part of the cycle. 5 mana, bounce 3 non-land permanents, play a free 4 drop.
Right. Yeah, I saw that.
Just insane value, it seems like.
Yeah, that I thought the which one was the red one?
Threaten and then cast a 2-drop for free.
Yeah,
So-
that one I actually thought looked like it had the most potential for constructed, because generally those cards tend to go in aggressive red decks,
Yeah.
and an aggressive red deck is very much about maximizing tempo.
Yeah. I think, so it does only threaten a creature with power 4 or less, I believe.
No,
So-
I think that's I think there's a common that does
Oh,
that
there's
for
a
2
common
mana.
that does that for
yeah.
2?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
The rare one I think is just 3 mana threaten.
So it's going to be turn 5, steal half your team, end the game. Because you get, or actually turn 3, because you can cast the 2-drop off of the 3-drop and just get 2 creatures. That's crazy. Yeah, I really like the black one. The Yahanilis, however you say. How do you say that name? Yahani? Yeah, so it does 4 mana, -3/-3 to the board, and then you also get to cast a 3-drop for free. So you're going to be able to throw a Liliana onto the board on top of wiping out any smaller decks. Looks like we're shaking the table here every time we shuffle the deck, huh? Some aggressive plays from the aggro deck.
All right, so we're
And
off.
we've got Andrew on the play with a couple of lands out here, Smuggler's Copter, and again the turn 1 Toolcraft Exemplar.
Yep.
DePaula crewing the Smuggler's Copter. Ooh, that is a brutal start.
Yeah, so it looks like he's able to get in and attack here for 6 points of damage on turn
And
3.
loot.
Yep. And unfortunately, Brad cannot block.
So it's more than 6, right? Because he's
Oh,
got...
because he's got the Dwarf Lord.
Yeah. She +1/+1 to vehicles and dwarves? Holy
Yes.
cow. Yeah, that was crazy life point change.
So it's Brad's turn 3. I don't know. What do you think his best turn 3 play is here? I don't think it's Stasis Snare because Andrew will still be able to attack.
Yeah, he'll still be able to get pressure, and if he has any cards left, which obviously with a loot,
Yeah.
he's going to have something.
I mean, realistically, he could have. I don't know. I don't know what Brad's best play here is. So he's got.
Sylvan Advocate, a little bit underwhelming, but it does let him crew a Smuggler's Copter to suicide into a copter? Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this at least prevents lethal on board,
But,
right?
yeah, he's not even going to really pump the brakes here. He's...
I mean, any removal spell, like an instant speed removal spell.
just ends the game. Yeah.
So
Let's see. What do we... So, Andrew's got Veteran Motorist. Is that game over? Plus a Harness Lightning. Oh, another Smuggler's
another
Copter.
copter. So that can crew the first copter. But I don't think he wants to attack with the Lord
Yeah, definitely not.
because it might be worth attacking with the Lord just to put... Because if he attacks with the Lord, he can put Brad to 1. Right, because Brad would
he'll
activate
take
his copter and then
8.
block the Lord, and then
Yep.
he would take 8, go to 1.
But, yeah. I don't see a way out of this for the green-white player.
Yeah, I mean, I think either...
Or band player, sorry.
Okay, so he's actually crewing. He's crewing and activating.
Okay.
I mean, he's still going to attack. I
I think I like the play that puts him to 1 as well.
Well, this gives Brad. The thing is, Brad can only chump block here with this attack, right? So he either is going to go to 1 and have both his creatures out, or he's just going to chump block and go to 5. But then at that point, Andrew has 5 creatures in play to Brad's 1.
Yeah.
And he's at 5.
Did Andrew skip his smuggler copter trigger? Is that what we're seeing here? Looks like there's a bit of a dispute about whether or not DePaulo was attacking. Oh, yeah. There we go.
Okay,
found the trigger.
I think he was explaining that he triggered
DePaulo rather than swung with her.
Yep. That he triggered when he activated to crew the copter, and then now he's resolving the copter trigger. And Brad goes to 1.
Right. Needs a flippin' terminus.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
Yeah, this is the one problem with Smuggler's Copter and just vehicles in general, right? Is that they not great for if like right now he effectively only has 1 blocker, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't have 2 blockers. I can't think of a card that gets Brad out of this situation.
Tameo taps down 2 permanents, right? Nope. Oh, double Selfless Spirit.
Yeah.
So that'll buy him Odd Turn, maybe?
Well, Andrew does need 2 creatures to crew the 2 copters.
Yeah, so
right?
he's got 3 swingers, so...
Yeah, so he currently has 3 creatures that can attack. He just needs 2 creatures to crew the 2 copters. So we'll see if he has them. One thing the vehicles deck is not short on is creatures. Especially creatures at a lower mana cost. So
And he still has a clue sitting on the side, so he could potentially crack that. Oh, we're just going to crew?
The sky? Yeah, I believe we're just
straight
going to
to combat.
Sky. So he doesn't. I guess he doesn't have the 2 creatures then to activate. And
Interesting. Makes you wonder what his hand is.
Could just be some stasis snares.
Yeah, not wanting to use them early in the game.
So yeah, so now he's going to attack with his 3/4 power creatures. Each of them is lethal.
So we've got to make our blocks, and I think, though, that we get to kill off the Toolcraft Exemplar if we're going to have to sack a spirit anyway, right?
Well, it depends on... Because we're still in the attacker step, so
Yeah.
Brad has to decide if he's going to crew the copter before he goes to blocks.
And then the copter could get blown out of the air.
Yeah,
with
so...
the stasis snare and just end the game.
Yeah, so because if he goes to crew the copter with, say, a Sylvan Advocate or a Spirit,
Yeah.
and then he has... Yeah, so now he has a tapped creature, so Andrew, if he has Stasis Snare, could go ahead and Stasis Snare just any one of these creatures, and then he has lethal. But it looks like he's going to let him go to blocks.
That doesn't look like that kills a Toolcraft Exemplar, right? It's still end of turn.
I believe the Toolcraft Exemplar is a 4/3 currently,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it doesn't die to the Advocate anyways. I'm curious what Andrew has.
Yeah, I think...
in his hand. A Gideon, possibly? Oh, so yeah.
Before blocks is what he's saying there when he's pointing at the...
The copter? Or did he do it after blocks?
That's interesting if he did it after blocks.
So he did it
after blocks.
So he did it after blocks.
Missed a line of play to end the game. Not that it's going to be highly relevant.
Yeah, I think he's still going to win this game anyways.
Just playing a bit more cautiously maybe. If his opponent won, you don't want to throw away a game that you've got in the bag.
The thing, though, with aggressive decks is you have to make sure you close the game out, because every turn you give a deck that's a little bit bigger than yours...
It's another resource that they can use, yeah.
So we've got a Declaration in Stone. Interesting... Okay.
Alright, that has not been as popular in the meta lately. It seems like Sorcery Speed gives some more resources in the longer game.
Also doesn't remove vehicles.
Yeah.
I don't... So...
Alright, if only. Get both those Smuggler's Copters.
Yeah. Yeah, see, now Andrew's actually kind of in a little bit more of an awkward position. No, well, not. He's got 3 attackers again.
Yeah, it's game.
I don't think Brad has double white available to him. It looks like he has
It's
two
like white, blue,
force.
green. Right? I think that's a fuller island under there. Oh, Spell Queller.
Spell Queller on the Selfless Spirit.
Okay. So then, but we're
So
crewing both our copters. No, taking it back. And walk it back and walk it back. We really want to trade our copter for a Selfless Spirit, I think is the question he's asking, right? That double Selfless Spirit on turn 4 really changed up the game, but could have all been over last turn.
Yeah, Andrew is kind of debating about what to do with what he has available. He has 2 mana, 4 untapped creatures, 2 copters and 2 untapped creatures. Yeah, Brad managed to turn this game around.
Right?
I still think he's a little bit behind, but he's
Certainly
certainly
a lot of work to stabilize at 1 life.
Yeah.
Does Avacyn do 3 damage to you as well?
No, it's to your opponent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So if he could set up an Avacyn flip.
yeah, on the
in a
next
turn,
turn, that
then-
could really change everything if he's pulling an Avacyn. 'Cause he's at 5 mana, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that would definitely be a very powerful swing. And his own Spell Queller wouldn't die because he can...
Sack the Selfless Spirit.
Well, no, that doesn't work because he has to transform it. So he would need another Selfless Spirit. But it would leave Andrew with a Selfless Spirit versus a flipped Avacyn.
Yeah.
Alright, so this is a Gideon, I'm guessing.
Yep. Lucky guess. 4 mana, double white. Used to be Day of Judgment, but now it's Gideon. I
Like
guess
my
before
day,
that
it was Wrath of God.
That's fair.
Wrath of God.
What do you think about them getting rid of regeneration for the Indestructible Taunt of Turn? Have you seen that? So Mark Rosewater was talking about it on his Tumblr where he posts answers to questions, and they've made a conscious decision to replace regeneration effects going forward with Indestructible until end of turn. Because it's a more clean effect. It doesn't tap it and remove it from combat and remove damage from it, right? Just it's indestructible till end of turn. That's more of a common concept to understand.
Lines up with their keywords as well, right?
Yeah.
Like it makes it simpler and cleaner to understand. I like it from the design perspective.
Yeah.
From a long-term player perspective, it will make things awkward in some ways, right? Because you're still, specifically for older formats, right? For future new formats, it doesn't matter, right, as much because obviously everything's designed with that new regeneration, neo regeneration. I don't know what we would call it, but like mass removal spells would be designed with that in mind. Whereas old mass removal spells, right? You still have cards like Wrath of God that say creatures can't be regenerated, and you still have creatures that regenerate, right? You still have creatures like.
Yeah.
Do you change? Do you do an Oracle rewording for cards like?
No, yeah, they're keeping regeneration. Or do you mean like updating Wrath of God to say and indestructible creatures?
No. I mean, I specifically mean cards like Troll Ascetic and.
Yeah, they're keeping regeneration. It's still going to be in the rules because they don't want to have that massive of an Oracle update, I think. But yeah, you're right. Design-wise, it's really interesting because like when you're like putting together a gift package, gifts ungiven, to grab Wrath of God, Damnation, Day of Judgment, Supreme Verdict, right? Now all of a sudden you're just grabbing 4 Day of Judgments, right? If everything can get indestructible instead of regen.
That there's functionally no difference between Day of Judgment and Wrath of God.
Yeah.
All right, so
we've got a swing in for lethal, right?
Well, let's see here. I believe Andrew played this turn a Gideon and another Exemplar because he used 5 mana. He's tapped both of those creatures to crew both of his copters, and he's attacking
we've got
with
4 attackers and ends the game. Yeah, because we've only got 3 blockers here. Back to that same problem with vehicles. It's not as good on the defensive.
Yep, so even after drawing the game out a little bit longer than it should have gone, Andrew manages to win that game with a blistering fast start.
Right? Yeah. I think the more surprising thing isn't that he won, but the extra few turns that it took. So good job to Brian. Yay!
Sometimes you just don't see plays like that, though.
That's true.
It's kind of like you miss the forest for the trees,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
It also can be awkward in a competitive environment to acknowledge steps passing, because we're so used to just autopiloting our way through Magic, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, your creatures are blocked and your removal spell sitting in your hand still.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I meant to do this before blockers,
Right.
after you crewed, but
Yeah,
we're kind of past that step now.
Yeah, and sometimes it can depend on your opponent even. Some opponents are deliberate and methodical about their play, and other opponents play very quickly, right? They play fast, and they just want to kind of rush through all the steps and things like that. And sometimes people will rush other players as well. They try and get them to jump ahead or whatever.
Yeah. I had that happen to me at a GP. I have this guy super worried about time. Like, we're like 15 minutes on the clock already in game 2, right? And
Mm-hmm.
or sorry, 15 minutes taken out of the round.
Sure.
So we have 35 minutes left, and we're already to game 2. And every turn he's like, hey, we're gonna run out of time. I've gone to turns 7 times today. I don't want to go to turns again, right? Which is a long day at a GP, pushing me. And then every single one of his turns, he just goes into the tank and sits and looks at his hand. I'm like, well, no wonder you went to turns.
Yeah.
It's not my fault.
I generally say if someone goes to turns on time and they're doing it consistently, you gotta wonder who's
right. It's not the opponent.
Yeah, who's causing the issue.
The ubiquitous Thraben Inspector is back.
Yep.
Gotta love a lot of decks with 1-drops on both sides of the battlefield, right?
Yeah, Andrew does not have a 1-drop, however.
Oh, missed his Toolcraft Exemplar.
Yeah, I definitely think in this matchup, I think Brad going first gives him a
Huge
really big
leg up.
advantage.
Yeah.
Because Andrew very desperately has to get a quick aggressive start and apply pressure early, because like we were talking about earlier in the match, Andrew doesn't have a way to really punch through.
Yeah, he's got to close the game out before Avacyn hits.
Yeah, he doesn't have a way to punch through like
or
Avacyn,
Tameo.
or Tameo.
Hopefully we'll see that Tameo coming down. I don't see any multicolored cards in Brian's hand yet, but maybe.
Yeah, Brad's deck has what I would refer to as the kind of the trumps in this matchup, right? Where he has a few more expensive cards that are much more powerful, that will end the game a little bit quick, or not end the game quickly, but will give him a superior board position. And he goes in and uses the Declaration in Stone.
Man. He's just like, no way, no how. You are not going to crew any vehicles today.
The one thing I do like about, I think, using Declaration at this point is, one, the Declaration tends to be more powerful early in the game, right?
Yeah.
Because
he has to take a whole turn off to get the card advantage.
Yeah, and Andrew's going to be more interested in playing creatures and developing his board than he is in using that clue.
Yeah.
Also could be that Brad has multiple 4-drops in his hand, and Andrew just has a Selfless Spirit here, which is not looking that good versus this board, since he doesn't even want to block Thraben Inspector with a Selfless Spirit, right?
Yeah, you can't trade the Selfless Spirit. It's got too many applications later in the game.
I thought I saw Brad had some creatures in his hand, but he goes ahead and crews the Copter here. Maybe he's looking for a land drop, possibly, before...
Yeah, it looked like he drew into a tapped land, and he wants to hit, 4th basic, or 2nd basic, 4th untapped land. Does that mean we're going to see Gideon, or...
a Tameo, possibly?
Hey? Oh, it's a Selfless Spirit. I think he crewed with the Thraben Inspector because it's the worst creature in the deck by far, right? So anything that does come down, you'd rather have...
Well, sure. What I'm wondering is, because I think he had the Selfless Spirit in hand before, so he could have played the Selfless Spirit and got one extra point of damage in, but it's possible that maybe he was thinking he would get a 4-drop like Tameo off the Copter, which...
That's true.
It may be better to give your opponent 1 point of life to possibly optimize into a better play, because I think all he's going to do now is just sacrifice a clue, which is Not the most exciting thing to do.
Yeah. Unless it finds a Tameo. Desperate to see that Tameo show up in this game.
Alright, so Brad goes ahead and sacrifices his clue. Andrew manages to get 2 more 2-drops into play, one of them being a copter. Brad's now up to 5 mana, so we could definitely be looking to set up an Avacyn.
Here comes the haymakers.
Yeah, I think the great thing about Avacyn, though, is that I don't know how many players do this, is that you can also use it aggressively in your own combat step, right? When you're ahead.
Swing with the whole team and keep them all alive. That is true.
But Brad just attacks with the copter. Andrew could potentially trade with it, which I think he's going to go ahead and do at this point.
I think he doesn't even trade because of Motorist, right? +1/+1 when he crews, but the Stasis Snare makes the point moot.
Yeah. So he's going to go ahead and take 3 more points of damage as that copter from Brad manages to get through.
Yet again. Oh, and the next copter comes down. Beats just keep coming. Wonder how much the meta's going to change with the what's left? New 3-mana instant in white to destroy an artifact or enchantment, and then it's got Revolt, gain 3 life.
I mean, 3 mana is a lot for a disenchant effect.
That's true.
Generally, you'll find that most constructed, most effects like that in constructed tend to be on the cheap side, right? You see a lot of the 1 mana artifact and enchantment removal spells that are even being played right now. Natural State from green, and then there's the white sorcery that I can't remember the name for it.
Fragmentize.
Yeah. Generally, you just want to play things that cost less mana than things that cost you more mana and give you some sort of small advantage, like gaining a little bit of life.
Yeah. But with the instant speed effect and the potential for like Paradox Engine and like other high mana effects, right, where Fragmentize can't hit them, if you're in white, you might want to be able to. Plus, it gets you. Does Fragmentize hit enchantments? Or is it artifacts?
I believe it's artifact or enchantment.
Oh, okay. So that could get him out of the Stasis Snare still. A lot of instant speed, being able to hit like Aetherworks Marvel potentially, right? Like instant speed could matter a little bit more going forward. Depends on what the combo decks shake out to be.
The problem with Aetherworks Marvel is that they generally always get an activation when they play it.
Yeah. Save it till they've got the right energy.
So
out.
even if you're able to use an instant speed, they're still going to get the value off of it. So Brad has a tireless tracker here. I believe he's empty-handed, but does have a clue off the tracker.
And he's got the mana to crack the clue. Looks like Andrew has somewhat stabilized. That +1/+1 from the Motorist really changes combat math.
The problem, though, I think, is Andrew just doesn't have any way to get any traction in this game, right? He doesn't have any way to... He might be able to get a couple attacks in here.
But yeah, now that he's stable and has the pressure to apply to Andrew.
Well, he's got one of those late game cards in Tireless Tracker, right?
Yeah.
So, cards like that, whereas Andrew's just going to be drawing,
best cards, maybe a Skyship Sovereign?
Yeah, I mean, a Skyship Sovereign, if it gets played quick enough in this game, could potentially change the game.
Fleetwheel Cruiser's going to at least apply pressure.
Yeah, I think Brad can just take the hit, though, since he's at 20.
Yeah, this turn for sure, but once it becomes, a 6/4 with the Motorist? That's going to be able to get through for a couple points of damage every turn until Brian finds the answer.
Yeah, so I think you just take the damage here.
Yeah. Cracked the clue, made the tracker bigger.
So now he's got two
cards in hand. So that a glimmer of white. Do we have an Avacyn? The Selfless Spirit?
I believe it's another Selfless Spirit.
Yeah.
Tracker is what I like to call the win-win kind of card in these situations when you're in top deck mode, because either you're drawing spells or you're drawing lands, and both are great.
Yep. Got another clue, making the tracker bigger. Guess in a couple turns here, he's going to be able to block the Fleetwheel Cruiser no matter how big it gets.
Well, I mean, he's probably, at some point, he's just going to be able to start attacking with the tracker.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to yet. He's kind of fixing his mana. He's going to sacrifice that clue.
Because he still has the 4 open to cast one of his walkers. Supposing he draws into it. What did we get here?
Can't quite see. We know he got a Selfless Spirit in hand.
We should attach like little GoPros to their forehead and be like, hey, watch your hands, see what's happening.
Like in poker games.
Yeah, exactly. Get some perfect commentary going on because we're just so insightful. We just need more information.
Alright, so he's thinking for a minute, which means... Okay, so he, I guess, was deciding about...
So we got a 5/4 Tireless Tracker, so forcing...
So the question is Andrew, do you want to go for a double block here?
Right.
The problem is...
Crewing the Smuggler's Copter makes it a 4/4 with the Motorist.
Okay.
So that gives him the trade.
Yeah, so I'm guessing they're just going to probably trade their Selfless Spirits off. Yeah.
Yep. Which is great for Brian because he gets to put another one down, right? Is that what we think he has in hands?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he has a Selfless Spirit.
There we go. So now he's past parity. The only thing giving him any trouble is the additional bonus from the Veteran Motorist and the Sky Sovereign. What's the name of that card?
No, that's
Sky Sovereign Ship. I've got one hanging in my store from the ceiling. I should know the name of it.
All right, so Andrew manages to play
another Selfless Spirit
Selfless
and a
Spirit.
Depala, so we can crew up a couple of vehicles, and that makes us a 5/5 Smuggler's Copter if we crew with the Motorist, or a 7. Holy cow, 7/5 Fleetwheel Cruiser?
Andrew might be able to turn the tables here a little bit if he...
It's a lot of points. It's interesting how well balanced the sets are that just a single +1/+1 effect changes the math so much. It's like they're designed around 3 3s and 2 3s, and then as soon as you put a +1/+1 on the board, it changes everything.
Well, anytime people are playing the same cards in their decks, +1/+1 generally tends to give you the advantage.
That's a fair point, yeah.
So he's attacking with the cruiser here.
Okay.
Looks like it was crewed with
Depala.
So it is
so
a
it's a 6/4.
And Brad is just going to take it.
Okay. So that's going to knock him down to under 10. That's in range of lethal. Right, I think if we can get one more crew body out here.
Yeah, it looks like Brad drew a
He's
Spell Queller and a
blocking.
land.
Woo!
So
Clue!
So he's continuing to fuel the tracker, but...
Is Andrew in top deck mode? I can't tell if he's out of cards in his hand. It
Well,
looks like he is, right?
He does have 2 clues available to him as well.
Okay.
So he does have plenty to do with his mana.
Yeah. I just don't think if Brian's able to hold open that Spell Queller, then he's going to be able to really slow down Andrew's play next turn, right? He's not going to be able to pressure him the same way. Is that Avacyn? I think I just saw an Avacyn.
Not really sure. Oh, it's a Gideon.
It's a Gideon? Dang it. Wrong Mythic. I'm so close.
Yeah, Gideon's...
Not ideal here, right? I think you have to hold open the Spell Queller just to stop the extra body from coming on board next turn. Plus, Queller gives you another option to fuel Copter with next turn too, right?
Well, the problem is that if Brad's going to win this game, I think he's... See, I don't know if I like attacking with Tracker here, because...
It's not lethal.
It's
right?
not lethal, yeah.
And we've got...
So he's gonna go for a double block. I think they're just gonna trade Selfless Spirits here again.
Yeah.
But at that point, I think that favors Andrew on this next attack, because Andrew has a lot of power in play.
Yeah.
And Brad's only gonna have right now he only has one blocker.
A blocker. Yeah.
So he can play a Gideon and make a second blocker, so he effectively has 2 blockers. I'm not really sure about that attack with the tracker.
I think the tracker was just getting big enough to be able to block everything but the cruiser, right?
Yeah, and the copter because of flying, obviously. But yeah, it could block any of the smaller creatures. Yeah, any of the smaller 3-power creatures.
So the debate is hold open Spell Queller and risk having to waste it just to crew a Smuggler's Copter, or slam Gideon and get the bodies. Let's do it.
I think you have to play Gideon here, because I think you have to try and win the game within the next turn or two, and holding and if you have Gideon in play for two turns, you get like an extra body out of the deal. Whereas if you're holding Spellcaller, you're reducing the value you get from Gideon.
Yeah, and if Andrew doesn't draw a live card here, Spellcaller was wasted anyway.
Yeah, there's maybe some merit to holding Spellcaller for like a Stasis Snare.
That's true.
But yeah, I just don't like the attack with the Tracker.
Yeah.
I think with both Tireless Tracker and Gideon, your goal at this point should be to make the game go much longer, right? Because you're going to be able to overpower even the bigger creatures Andrew has. Eventually,
as long as you can stay alive for 2 more turns.
Yeah, just through raw resources, right?
Yeah.
But these are the turns that Andrew has an opening to win the game.
It's crazy that our boards are almost at parity despite the, 3 extra lands that we've got out of 4 extra lands on band mid-range side.
Mm-hmm.
It really shows off the power of Tireless Tracker, not having to hold your clues open. So we've got a 7-5 Fleet Wheel Cruiser. Whew! That guy's going to punch through.
Yep.
Don't have a Spell Queller to make our... Or not Spell Queller, sorry. We don't have a Selfless Spirit to make our blocks better. So I think that Trample's going to knock Gideon out no matter how he chooses to block. Is he at Gideon or at face?
I'm assuming he's going face. I would go face
right?
if there's Andrew here.
Yeah, because there's no profitable blocks for our BAM mid-range player.
Yeah, at this point, I'm just ignoring Gideon, and I'm just trying to end the game.
Yeah.
Because, again, trying to trade resources with the man deck when he has a Tracker and a Gideon in play is not going to win you the game. Trying to...
I think we're going to see a chump block here, even, just to make sure we stay alive for 1 more turn. It's interesting. I feel myself like identifying with the band player just because of the way the camera's oriented. I'm like, I am the band player. Don't kill me. Oh man, this is a tough decision. Yeah, because it's lethal, right? We've got 7 and 4,
sure, yeah.
so 11 damage coming at us.
Yep.
If we don't jump block, I guess so. We could do even if we block with the knight though.
So I think he could.
We die.
So he may be considering double blocking on the cruiser, right? Because then he takes 6 and he goes to 3. But
then
trades...
any combat trick just knocks us out. So well, I guess we'll see if Andrew has it. He's made the gesture.
I think he's just counting up damage.
Okay,
here.
okay. It's like just that slow play, just reveal the stasis there. Oh!
So he should be at 3, I believe.
Alright. Yep, down to 3. But that cruiser's off board, which means Gideon's token's got a lot more powerful. And we just need a way, any way to deal with Smuggler's Copter. Preferably not our Spell Queller, so we don't have to chump block next turn. Is that Tamio? I think he drew Tamio.
Which is the card you were talking about that he was excited to play.
Yes, I really let's just slam her and make some magic happen. So does she tap down 2 permanents with her minus, or is it 2 creatures?
So, yeah. I believe it's 2 2 non-land permanents.
Probably non-land, yeah. Land would be really powerful.
Yeah.
We'd be seeing a lot more Tamio if she could slow down the whole game that well.
Yeah,
hey! There's our favorite Planeswalker.
So I'm assuming he's going to go ahead and use that minus to lock down the Copter.
Gotta keep the Copter out if he can. Yep, there we go. Targeting the Copter.
And then...
DePaula? Oh, Motorist, so no double triggers if he does get another Fleetwheel Cruiser out. It's only going to get DePaula's pump. So that'll be nice.
And now he can afford to hold Spell Queller to counter like something like a Stasis Snare.
Yeah. See, I told you Tamio turning the whole game around.
And he's again attacking with that Tracker, so
right. And if Tamio,
I actually like the attack with the Tracker a lot better in this board position though, because
you've got the tokens to chump block with. There's nothing with flying and haste, right? And you're potentially killing off.
I may still hold the Tracker back just for 1 more turn because
that Fleetwheel Cruiser off the top could
change
all the math here.
Yeah, like so let's say Andrew does draw a Fleetwheel Cruiser. What do you do? Like, how do you block?
Oh, you Spell Queller it. That's why.
Oh, right. Fair
Yeah,
enough,
because it's
fair
4 or
enough.
less.
Fair
Yeah, I
enough.
don't think there's anything with haste that's more than 4 mana. So
Okay.
I guess Sky Sovereign's
Sky
still
Sovereign,
an
but-
unfortunate draw, but it doesn't.
But it won't end the game, right?
Yeah, yeah. Only thing with haste is really going to change the game here. So
It would definitely cause a lot of problems though if he did draw a Sky Sovereign, right? Because he can kill.
Oh, yeah.
He can kill the Tameo right off the bat, right?
yep. And then that means that we have to draw an answer to the Smuggler's Copter immediately. So it looks like Tameo starts with 4 loyalty, and the tap effect is -2 loyalty. So we've got one more turn if we're going to do that. I almost think the better play, though, is to plus on Tameo and hope that we draw into an answer rather than buy one turn out of her.
You also, there's also, well, I mean, the other thing is Andrew has to be aware of is also just not dying to Tameo as well, right? Because
Oh, yeah, tap down 2 more blockers
Yeah.
and the game with Gideon.
yeah,
Oh,
so
that's a good line.
yeah, that's another thing he has to watch out for is the fact that Tameo. So he decides to take the hit from the tracker.
Yeah. Yeah, Gideon and Tracker just end the game if he doesn't get a live body out here.
Yeah, so
Against this Tameo.
he actually is now in possibly chump block mode.
Yeah.
Because he's actually gonna need 2 creatures here, right, to block.
Yeah. This is a lot like the fleet will. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Spell Queller the Cruiser. Look, we're like freaking psychics over here, man. Talking about the best possible lines of play, and they happen.
And there's the Inspector, but now Brad has lethal. He has multiple
Yeah.
lethal attacks with Tameo, as long as he sees.
If he sees
the fact that
the
he can
-2
tap
is
down
game
to
over.
Give it lethal.
Yeah, that's a good point. You still got to see the play. It's kind of like in, what was it, 2 Pro Tours ago, LSV was playing Collected Company, and he had the Subjugator Angel, taps down the whole opponent's board, just to push through those last 4 points of damage. But, yeah, interesting. So we've got...
So he went for a land and a clue with a tracker, which is fine. I don't have an issue doing, optimizing your plays before...
It doesn't look like... Is he seeing it? He's
it.
plussing? Oh, there we go.
All right, so he's
Tapping
minusing,
down.
tap
DePaula,
down,
and
have a
hey, there we go.
creature.
Get there! Show the value of splashing into that 3rd color there.
Now all he needs to do is just plus his Gideon. Even if he doesn't plus Gideon, he still has lethal, because even a chump block on the Tireless Tracker, he still has 5 points of power.
Yeah, this is game. Alright, no shock, no galvanic bombardment. He's just going to end it all.
Yep. Goes on pluses, and then attacks
And
with
bash, bash, bash,
all
bash.
his creatures for lethal.
Yep. It's crazy. I think the green splash is really worth it on the blue-white deck, right? Like he's pretty similar to blue-white mid-range, but getting the Tireless Tracker and Tameo, I don't know if he comes back to win this game without those 2 cards. So
Yeah,
definitely some spicy deck tech there.
I mean, Tracker definitely drew what,
4 cards, right?
4 cards, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we got some out. Is that? I think that's Skylar Stewart telling people how to play Magic again. Pretty common occurrence. No, here's how you died every time. Sweet. Well, that was a really exciting game.